Welcome back to Talking Story. My name is John Minton, and I've got a full book review for you today. This was a book that I had on my anticipation list of 2024, The Book of Love by Kelly Link. Big thanks to NetGalley and Random House Publishing for getting me an early e-arc before this book is released so I could get a full review to you. And I was so interested in this because I have loved some of Kelly Link's short fiction in the past. She's been shortlisted for the Pulitzer. She's been a recipient of the MacArthur Genius Grant. She's one of the top magical realism short story writers out there. And I have really loved her stuff. And this is her first full-length novel. And I could not wait to see what she did with a little bit of longer form. And this was about 600 pages long. So when I say longer form, she really did go long or go home. So what did I think of it? We're about to get into it. My reviews work on a classic 5-star system. We're going to look at 5 different categories: world building, plot, character, pace, and prose. Each category can get anywhere from a 1/4 star all the way up to a full star. At the end of this, I'm going to try not to pull a hammy or injure myself doing some mathematics in my head. I'm going to come up with what those add up to be, and that will be our full score for the book. So let's not wait any longer. Is this book worth your time? Let's start with world building. World building, I really there was a great start here. We had such a quirky little town, Love's End, a seaside town, where a centuries-old magical feud is being played out. And she just didn't do enough for me to set the world on its own, to make it singular. The top of the heap is when your world or when your setting actually becomes a character in your piece. That didn't happen. Not only did that not happen, but it just went so far on the scale for me like your everyday American town. And that works fine for magical realism a lot of times because things are going to start happening, but I really wanted it to go further. I wanted it to be its own character. I wanted it to have way more layers of quirkiness. I wanted it to have a bit of its own backstory and lore and history of why this centuries-old feud would be wrapping up or taking place here in Love's End. I found the only kind of quirkiness in Love's End that kind of set the town or setting apart from any other town anywhere, it was tied to one character. There was a character that was an African-American romance writer who had taken up residence there. And anything quirky about the town is things that she had done to it while she was there, working on her art, which is cool. But again, I just wanted more backstory of the town. I wanted more lore of the town. I wanted it to be its own character in its own place. It's just a place that exists nowhere else but in this book. And I just had the feeling of, it's just your run-of-the-mill town. It's got a makeout spot. It's got the high school. It's got a karaoke bar. It's got some houses of our main characters, and some are in more affluent areas and some are in less affluent areas. It was just by rote every American little seaside town, and I just wanted more. So I'm going to go world building a 1/2 star. Let's move on to plot. What is going on in this run-of-the-mill American town when this magic starts to pop up and happen? This, as I said, a centuries-old magical feud that is revolving around a moon goddess. And her power has been attempted to be taken away in the past. And everything is kind of coming around again. And we have 3 high school students that somehow get pulled into this, and it goes very badly for them. This is not much of a spoiler because the book kind of starts out with this. When they get pulled into this, they are all killed. So the book starts with them being pulled back into this world from the other world, from being deceased and dead, by their music teacher, who is a little bit more than a music teacher. And that's how it starts. And from there, we start to unlock mysteries as we go. Who really is this music teacher? Who is his kind of other half that is always there? when he's explaining some of these mysteries. What happened to them hundreds of years ago when they tried to go up against this goddess that's kind of repeating itself now with these high school students as they're put through their paces of who will come out on top and try to stand up in this final battle. And so there are no spoilers. That's about as far as I'm going to go in with the plot. And honestly, it's everything that I think I should love. Magical realism, a magical feud that's been going on for hundreds of years, larger than life characters, wizards dueling it out, petulant, angry, oftentimes moon goddess wrecking shop as she moves around. But for some reason, when everything comes together, I just thought, you know what? I really wish that she would have done a concise short story of what happened 100 years ago, and I could have had that bite, and then I could have had a short story of what's happening now. And in between those short stories where she filled out these 600 pages was oftentimes young people muddling through this, trying to figure things out, and their priorities were just not what I would have thought their priorities would be when their stakes are this high of the world and their loved ones at stake. Oftentimes they just filled pages and chapters with who they would fall into bed with. And it just suffered from bloat for me. I actually had a pretty tough time of getting all the way through it. At its core, I feel there were probably two dynamite Kelly Link short stories. The backstory of what happened hundreds of years ago and the players involved and all their motivations of why they were trying to do this, and now how they're trying to rectify it by conscripting these high school kids into this magical war. And if it would have just been two concise short stories kind of linked together to tell a broader whole, I think I would have really dug it. But there was just so much filler, and obviously Kelly Link loved these characters so much because she would spend so much time with them, and there was so much of this 600 pages full of that as opposed to the story and the plot. I just had a hard time. It just didn't come together for me. All the parts did not come together for me. So I'm going plot a half star. I do think there were two great stories in here. The way they were presented, I just thought they were fractured and couldn't come to fruition. Let's move on to characters. Now, most of these are the characters that this story revolves around are these high school kids that have been pulled back from death to be conscripted into this war. And as I said, their motivations, I just don't think I was the audience for this story. I think it's what it comes down to. Oftentimes, I was just reading through chapter after chapter going, what are you thinking? Like, this is a big deal. Like, everything we know and love could tumble down. And it just seems like we're just finding time for tryst after tryst. And and then oftentimes their emotional quotient of where they are, of who's saying what about whom and who thinks about this. And it was just absolute high school melodrama to me is the way it played out. It did not connect with me at all. I did not see the emotional motivations played out. Towards the end of this, when the real body punches of emotion start to come and bills come due from this magical war and prices are being paid with these characters, I just didn't feel it. It just didn't hit me because I just was not wrapped up in these characters' lives at all. I just couldn't follow with them on their journey. Now, on the flip side of this, I actually connected more with these hundreds-of-year-old magicians that were trying to find love after all these years and try and understand that fleeting, brilliant light mystery of just living a humane life, that the mystery of humanity is enough and they don't have to extend their lives over all this time, and they just want to have just a simple human life where the true mystery can be uncovered. To me, that spoke way more to me, but the lens was not focused on them very often. It was focused on these three high school kids. So it just, I just was not connected. I just don't think I was the audience for this. So characters, again, I'm going to go half star. So where does that go with our next category of pace? I kind of think I already showed. There's a lot of pages here fleshing this out. The 600, a lot of them did not deal with what I thought where the heart of the story really was. So a lot of the times I felt like I was kind of slogging through. A lot of the times emotionally I wasn't attached, so I was slogging through. And one thing that makes me absolutely think that Kelly Link loved these characters is she would not trust the audience to do anything as far as filling in the blanks would go. And I'll just give you like one example. Oftentimes she would go in a nonlinear fashion because it's a multi-POV story between these three high school students that have been pulled into this war, right? So she would be with one or other points of view just to flesh out the world or story. She would be with one and something's happening and another one would magically turn into a bird with someone they're having a tryst and fly off to have a romantic rendezvous, a tryst as birds. And then we stay here where the story's happening and it keeps going on. And any type of forward momentum that's built up by staying with the story is then, I thought, killed for me, because then she's going to go back in time with the next chapter to follow up what exactly happened with those two characters. She wants to allow nothing to happen off screen. I can fully imagine what Two Magical Bird Love could be and go on with my day and just stick with the story. She doesn't want me to do that. She wants to fill in all the blanks because I think she really is attached and is in love with these characters. She didn't want to waste any moment to have time with them, and she didn't want us to have any possibility to fill in a blank of having something off screen. So for me, that killed any type of forward momentum I had with the story, because when it would start ramping up, I would go back in time to see what was happening with these other characters off screen. Oftentimes, I could have filled in the blanks myself. So I thought the pace absolutely suffered for that. Not only me not being attached to the characters or the world. So I'm going to have to go pace about a half star as well. So that leaves us with prose. Now, what can I say about Kelly Link's prose? She is an absolute craftsperson. She understands every tool in her box. She understands how to use every tool in her box to the fullest. Her prose is truly beautiful. There were several times where I had to stop and reread some turns of phrase that really touched me. There were times that not only her choice of words or metaphor or language, but also just her use of rhythms. When she wanted to speed something up, she would go into more staccato rhythms. When she wanted to make something more flowing in language, she would go to longer type sentence structures to sink you in that way. So her rhythms, methods like that to pull you along in the prose, just beautiful. Her words, just beautiful. Turns of phrase, simile, metaphor, everything that she pulled out of her toolbox she used as an absolute craftsman. I can't find any fault with her at all when she is creating with words as far as beauty of language. So I have to give prose an absolute full star, even though a lot of the story did not connect with me. So let's add this all together. And what we end up with is 2.5 stars. I was disappointed. I was absolutely looking forward to this, not only because it was Kelly Link's first full-length book, but because it's Valentine's this month, and Book of Love I thought was going to be a great choice for me to kick off February. And for some reason, it just didn't connect with me, and I think I know what that reason was. Art, literature is absolutely subjective. I bet if this finds the right audience, it is going to hit, and it is going to hit hard. It is going to sink in and could quite possibly become some people's favorite book. I think probably younger, looking for more of a romance than I was at this time. I kind of feel like I'm that old guy with the hose on the front porch spraying down anybody that wants romance this month of February for Valentine's Day, but it just didn't work for me. I'm just not the right audience. If you feel like you may be the right audience, if you feel like you're a bit younger and you're looking for something more in the romantasy type of vein, if you want to connect with some characters that are going through what you are going through at this time, as finding yourself, finding how love works for you, finding what love means to you, and have a whole bunch of magical realism thrown on top of that, and a kind of a, at its core, a really cool magical war that's being wrapped up after centuries. Don't take what I'm saying to sway you. Absolutely give this a try, because I think at the core here, I love the prose so much, and I just think I was not the right audience sitting out here in my seat. So there you go. That's all of my thoughts on this Book of Love by Kelly Link, her first full-length novel. I absolutely will read what she does next, because she is a beautiful craftsperson. And when she does something maybe with some characters I can connect with, and more of a world that I can see myself in or feel about as home or singular, I'm going to sink right in and love it. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. My name is John Minton. Right down there, right below us, is that little thumbs up button. If you kind of like what we do here, if you've stopped by a time or two and you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, ooh, now's the time. Don't go away. It's so easy. Just a click and it's done. It's so good. It makes you feel so good. It feels right. Go ahead and do that for us right now. That's all I got for you today. This has been Talking Story.